And welcome to another show of Don't Get This Twisted. I am Rob, along with my co-host, as always, Tina. How you doing, Tina?
I'm good, Rob. How are you?
Oh, better now after all my technical difficulties of starting the show and ending it and fucking doing something wrong. I don't know what I did.
And that was only the last thing that went wrong.
Yes, along with microphones and headphones and a bunch of other shit. So
yes,
we'll get there. So
yes.
Since we couldn't come up with a brilliant show for today, I have one of these things in our little project logs, risk versus reward. And you were like, what do you mean by that, Rob? And I was like, it could mean a lot of things. So I think when it comes down to it, most things are risk versus reward, whether you're investing in stock or investing in your life. I think a lot of it has to do with, like, do you want to change your job? Do you want to move to a new state? Do you want to get out of a relationship that you've been in a long time? Everything is risk versus reward.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's like, okay, I look at it from like the job standpoint, or like moving out of state, because I definitely want to leave the state at some point. There's huge risk versus reward there, because I have a good job now.
Mm-hmm.
I do okay, but of course, everything here in California is insanely expensive and going up in price as we speak.
Right.
So I think a lot of that is kind of its own wild thing right now. Because, if you leave the state, the risk is job market. So you're probably going to pay less, but you're going to make less.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to make that California money.
You got to leave everything and everybody that you've known and rely on. And, your whole life will change. Correct.
And then that's another thing where it's like, for me, it's a little better because of my son being much older. You know what I mean? So I think I have that going for me,
mm-hmm.
to where, like, I'm I don't have to worry about finding someone to pick him up from somewhere, or have a babysitter or after school program. Because when I did that in Vegas in 2008, that was a rough time where, I was very worried about that kind of thing. And, I had risk versus reward. So that ended up being its own weird, monstrous thing. But I'll definitely say that there was reward in that. I mean, for me, I got out of a relationship, and I think it was more of just me trying to tell myself that I could do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But a risk came with that, with taking my kid to another state, him having to start over, not having mom near him, learning, meeting and learning new friends. So yeah, there is that. And I think that happens with us as well. Like, in my head, I see it as being this really cool thing, leaving the state. Like, oh, it's a new start. It's new life. But you're right. Like, I have no one to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the people who I have now around me to help with, with most things if I really needed it. You'd end up being on an island again, kind of by yourself.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It's a big risk, to be somewhere where no one and have to start over. Mostly when you're a little older. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never done that, but I'm facing that because the divorce is going to be final in October. And then it's like, okay, now you need to decide, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? What type of work are you going to do? Are you going to continue to do what you've always done? Everything's been so up in the air, and I've gotten kind of used to it being up in the air. But it also meant that I didn't have to make any decisions. And once the divorce is final, there's going to be a crap ton of decisions to make. And I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I'm kind of in that space, like, what is going to be risk? Like, am I going to live here in the Valley again? And, we spend so much money to live here. Rent is insane, and it just went up 10%. Mm-hmm. And, I know everybody here because I grew up here, but do I want to stay and not try something new? I mean, am I going to do hair? Because the business is kind of collapsed in crazy ways. So it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of sitting here going, yeah, I get the whole risk and reward thing. But right now, it just feels like a bunch of risk.
Yeah. I mean, I think with the economy the way it is, everything's a risk now. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Like, my rent went up again. So 2 years in a row.
Yep.
Like, I even had told my kid, I was like, look, it's time. Like, you got to help. Like, mm-hmm. I need help. Like, and it's not that I need help. I just don't want to get buried, like, he's going to end up just paying for his food and his cell phone at the end of it. 'Cause I'm not going to make him pay half of everything. But yeah, there's a risk in that. And like, there's a risk in signing a new lease because mm-hmm. then I'm stuck for a year.
Right.
So, and, my idea is to get out of here, but go like even going month to month, like the jump in rent going month to month is absurd.
Really?
It's like an extra like $250 a month.
No way.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. But I think that they do that because, like, let's say, you do want to leave here. So you're going to pay that extra $250 for 2 months.
Right.
Without having to sign a lease. So it's kind of, it's a safety net of being able to just pack up and leave. Because if you wanted to get out of your lease, I'm sure there's a huge penalty. They're going to want, whatever. So I don't know. It's a scary thing that, I mean, any risk is scary. It's like, do I do this or do I do that? Am I comfortable? Like right now, I'm pretty comfortable. Yeah. But sometimes comfortable is mediocrity. You're just sitting there going, this is all I do.
Well, I was comfortable in my marriage, but I wasn't happy with it. So I had mm-hmm. to risk, leaving to be happy as opposed to staying where I was safe or things were secured. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a scary thing, but I just couldn't live the way we were living anymore. So my need changed.
Well, sure. And you don't even know, you're taking the risk still.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, you may not know if there's a reward for quite some time.
Well, thanks, Rob.
Well, I'm just being honest because like, in my case, like, my divorce was 13 years ago. So yeah. I know the payoff.
Yeah.
It took me, I would say it took me a good year to like know where I was at. I knew after 6 months that I had to move on, but I still had that, what's going to happen in my head. I knew it was already over and I was moving on. So that part of the risk was over. Like I was already like, okay, this is happening. I'm not wondering about that part anymore, but what was there a reward, I think was more than anything. And like, I think that there is one. I think there's always something. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about just life in general. And we were talking about certain people we've been with and and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, this is what I said. Life always goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Always. It goes on until it doesn't, whatever that means for you. So, and she was like, well, that's kind of a weird way of looking at it. And I was like, no, because that's the only way of looking at it. You have to understand that life goes on, whether it's losing the relationship you always wanted to be in, or it's having the job that you always loved and they had to let you go because, business is shitty. The life goes on though. You're always going to pick up the pieces and move on. It may be shitty for a little while, but there's always light. Sometimes it's just a little pinhole, or it's this big sunlight at the end of the tunnel. So for me, it's like, that's how I'm trying to look at life. It's always going to go on. I'll be fine. It's just a matter of how I get to the better spot, because you'll be fine. I think in your case, you made the right decision, or you're going in that right direction. Now for you, I think it's more, do you decide to venture out and take that big risk?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've never done it. I think for you, that's a new thing. That this is something that you've never done.
That's the terrifying thing for me, because I've never done it. And I think to myself, I've done everything in my life that scared me, except for move away, except for, just big leap. Let's just go and see what happens. I've not done that. And I wonder sometimes, is that what I'm supposed to be doing? Is that what I want to be doing? I don't know. It's sitting in limbo.
It's hard. I mean, when I decided to move to Vegas, it was super duper scary, because I, just like you, pretty much lived my whole life in the Valley.
Yeah.
Just, and I was so comfortable in the townhouse that I lived in that at one point my ex-wife, talked about moving, and I was like, why would I want to do that? Everything's great. There's no reason to move. And then of course I started to get a divorce, and then she wondered why I was moving.
Right.
Yeah. So in that case, it's like, I even got the double whammy on that. Like, I got in trouble with her for wanting to move now. It's like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But, I didn't take the risk in my divorce. So it was, I was just kind of I was just a player in the game. Yeah. But my risk was leaving the state in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because I thought that, I thought there could be a reward, and I was rewarded to some degree. I had to leave to see that I could do things again on my own. Because I was with her almost 10 years. So for me, it was like, I didn't know if I could do it again. But it's like riding a bike. It's very easy to just get right back on and keep going, because you have to. I mean, in my case, I had to, because I had a kid. Well,
you just have to, because you have to. I mean, where are you going to live? What are you going to do? You have to do something.
But when you have somebody that you have to take care of.
Yeah.
I mean, besides yourself, obviously, I think that there's a different kind of urgency where you start. The risk versus reward is huge. You go, okay, if I take this risk, is it everything? The reward is he's going to be better off. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Where when you do it for yourself, I think you're looking for a different reward, right? We both have children that are way older,
right?
So there's not that anymore. And I think in my case, yes, like, I don't want to leave him behind yet, because he's just gonna turn 20.
Right.
So I mean, I would hate to bury him in something where he couldn't take care of himself, or it would be hard. So
I agree.
So for me, it's like, so do I pack up and move now and go, hey dude, I'm moving. Do you come with me? And I asked him about, an adjoining state. I was like, hey, what about Arizona? And he was like, I'm not sure. Do I want to do this? And I was like, you know, and who really knows? I mean, I don't know if there's any kind of real payoff or any kind of real thing that's going to happen, but I'm trying to plant the seeds for him, because if I plant the seeds on moving, I think that if and when it happens, he's not hit in the face with, hey, I might move. We're going to move or this. It gives him options to start at least thinking about his future. Like, what do you want to do? Because let's say I pack up and move across the country, like Florida or South Carolina or Tennessee. Him getting back this direction is going to be very difficult. And I think, that's the bigger thing. If I would move to Nevada or Arizona, coming back is not going to be difficult. It's,
right.
You can just pack up and you could rent a truck and be home in either hours. Well, actually hours either way, because I have relatives that live outside of Phoenix. Phoenix is like 5 hours away.
5-6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think where I live, it's close. I think I looked it up one time and I think it was like 4 hours and 35 minutes to my cousin's house. Yeah. Because, I am on this side of the world, so I am a little bit closer.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's the kind of thing where I'm like, but do I, I'm thinking, do I want to live in the desert? Arizona's cool. I think that there's good things about Arizona. But while I was vacationing, earlier in the year back in North Carolina, I thought that was a great state. And I think the South in general, just nicer people, or, more, I hate to say down home, but more down home and kind of like chill. It's just a different different breed, different cusses. It ain't like here. Like California is full of generally, it's so many different kinds of people that I don't think that they're all on the same page. And, we have shit tons of traffic that make people angry. So, it's like getting on the freeway here is risk versus reward. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
Because when I was back there, it was funny because we were talking about traveling to another town in North Carolina, and it was like, I want to say an hour south. Let's just say that. People there actually ask you how far things are. They're like, I'm like, well, how long is it going to take to get to this town? And they're like, yeah, it's about 65 miles. I'm like, that doesn't mean shit to me. Like, I'm from California. Everything's by time.
Yeah. How long is it going to take?
Yeah. Because it can take me 2 hours to go 9 miles if I'm on the 101 at the wrong time.
That's
funny.
What
I mean? Or the 405 going into Hollywood. It's like, it's a whole other thing. So I don't know. I think that those are the things that I think in general we all look at with risk versus reward. I'm at a point where I think, we're both at the same age, that point where it's like, okay, if you're going to start new, your next new should be a long game or somewhat of a long game. Like, I don't think I want to move every other year anymore. If I'm going to do this, I would say my plan is to be in the same area 5-6 years.
See, and that to me doesn't even make sense, because I'm thinking long game is where you're going to die, because I hate moving. So
Well,
like,
yeah, me too. Moving
to me,
sucks.
it's like, okay, let's face it. I've lived in 4 homes my whole life. Like, end game for me is not having to move again. And where do I want to end up? What, if I'm going to do this, like, I want to make friendships that last for the rest of my life.
Sure.
Not just for, a few years. So, yeah, for me, the risk versus reward is real right now,
I see that with you, but I also see you as in, well, you know what? Maybe you'll just have the traveling bug. So you will plant your seed somewhere or your roots, but you'll probably travel and be on your way somewhere. Maybe that's the way I see you.
I always like to travel.
Yeah, because I don't see you in one place a long time, but maybe I just see that because I can see you, like you always talk about Greece.
Yeah.
So
that scares the shit out of me to go to Greece, to do that by myself. That's definitely I call it my pipe dream, but I don't know. Stranger things have happened with me because I will one day just get up and go, today's the day. Fuck it. Let's do this. And
exactly. And I think that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at moving. I'm to a point where I'm just kind of like, yeah, I think I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to take the leap. But
yeah,
the bad part for me is right now, like my lease is up. So I have to make a decision, and I literally have to make a decision, in less than a month. So my decision is obviously I'm going to stay here for a year.
Another year.
Yeah. I've told myself, unless something crazy comes up, like a work position in another state that I can't say no to. Like, I'm going to make California money in a state where, like, I was looking just for fun in North Carolina. I can get a 3-bedroom apartment there that's like 1,300 square feet for like $1,500 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And where I live now is a 2-bedroom that's about just over like 980 square feet. It's like 2,100.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously cost of living. Like my brother lives in Idaho. You can believe this. To register your car in Idaho, it's like $22.
I just spent $420 to register my car.
I just spent $340 to register my car.
Okay.
So, yeah. So again, for everything that's great about this state, and I love this state. There's great things about this state. There's a lot of shit like that where you're just like, is it really worth the 80-degree weather?
It kind of is, though. Because, but even when I was in El Paso, like, gas was almost $3 cheaper a gallon.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
Mm-hmm. And,
I'm thinking,
you look at someplace. Yeah, no, seriously. I have a friend who's thinking El Paso. I have a friend who's that's exactly what he's thinking right now.
Really?
Him and his wife, the coffee show, him and his wife.
Oh, yeah.
Are thinking Texas, El Paso. Actually, they would, because I put something on my Facebook today, like, hey, look, I'm looking to maybe leave the state, sell me on a place. And all these people were like throwing things at me. And he was like, I'm thinking Texas, man, El Paso. And I was like, all right, well.
Is he Hispanic?
No, his wife is.
Yeah.
He's a ginger white guy.
Okay.
But I think, he'll be fine. He's
El Paso's kind of the people there are very kind. They're good people. So every time I've been out there, I've met more and more of my friends' friends or friends' family or in-laws, outlaws, whatever. And over the years, I know so many people now that I literally have a little village out there, and they all remember me as if I was their friend. So it's kind of for me, it's kind of been a neat place to go because there are so many people that I know and that want to see me when I go out there. I enjoy it there. I really do like the people.
And I think that's what I'm looking for. That's why I'm willing to take the risk, because I'm looking for that small town feel, that where it's like it's okay to know all your neighbors and it's okay not to. Like no one's gonna get crazy with you. It's just gonna be like, hey, that's Rob down the street. And I think here's the crazy thing, being from California. I know people that were like, yeah, you can come here to this city, but just don't say you're from California.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're serious about it. They're like, yeah, they don't like people from California here. Don't say that shit. And don't bring your politics here.
Yeah.
If you're moving out of California because it's a shithole, you're doing it because you don't like what you're in and you want to get out of it. Don't bring that same thing here, which, it's like a cancer. You got to be careful about taking your California politics to Texas.
Yeah. Good thing is I don't get caught up in politics. They tried when I was there. I got caught up in a couple of conversations that started to go that route. And one time I got up and went to the restroom and waited a few minutes before I came back because I wanted to be done with that. And then another time I just plain said, y'all know that I don't talk about this shit. So you guys have a good time. And I got up and just walked away. And they're like, she does that every time. I'm like, yeah, I don't have an opinion to want to share.
That's funny. You just said y'all too. That's even better.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do that.
That's great. It's pretty funny shit. I think that's the other thing that I really enjoyed while I was back there, is that kind of, I hate to say, it's a country feel. It's just a different way of saying things. Like we walked into a little boutique, and I mean, I'm talking in a tiny town. Like it had a main street, and I want to say it was like 3 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was small. And we walked in, there was this young girl working there, probably 22 to 25, somewhere in like that. As soon as we walked in, she was like, hey y'all, how you doing today? Blah, blah, like just the nicest person. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, this is just a crock of shit. Like there's no way. And my friend who I went to visit was like, everyone's like that here. They're just good country folk that, they don't care if you're from the town 20 minutes away or you're from out of state. It doesn't matter to them. They're just good people that, they're just trying to make a living and do their thing. So I think that's where I'm willing now to take that risk, because I think the reward for me is again, someplace where I can probably go forever. Like, I can go to die, and, and I'm kind of looking at like, look, we have the 2 best seasons, right? We have warm, hottish, and we have blazing hot, right? Because we really don't have, at least in Southern California, crazy winters. No, we're lucky. We can drive to the mountains and see snow and then go back home where it's nice.
Oh yeah.
So, when you look at that, it's like, it would be kind of neat to have a season. Cause like when I went back, what time? Well, I think I went back the first time in February, and it was cold. Like it was chilly cold. Like we were walking her dogs in the morning, and it was like, I want to say like 27 degrees. Like it was.
That's a huge risk right there, because I'm not used to being in that type of weather.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this is like, it wasn't. I don't know. I didn't find it to be horrible. Like it was cold, but you put on jacket, put on beanie, and it was cool. And now that I have a dog, or a puppy still, but I'll have a dog. Like I'll be able to, like, there you can go, and there's forest. You just go hiking on the side of the road. Like there's houses that are backed up to like a forest, like big ass fucking trees. Like I think that would
sounds
be
like
cool.
Every scary movie that they've ever started with. I don't think I want to do that.
You just everyone carries a gun there, so it doesn't matter. You'll be all right. You'd have a gun just like the rest of the people who live there.
And I'd be okay with that, but still, I don't know if I want to live but it up to the forest.
I will tell you
that was hard to say.
Yeah, it was, huh? The weird thing about the South, or at least in North Carolina when I was there, not many people in older developments, they don't have fences.
Right.
There's just a property line. Like, people walk through people's yards and shit. The backyards, not front yards, like your backyard. Like, and in my head, I'm like, you will get shot if you're walking in my backyard. Like, but I guess the newer developments that they're building are, more fenced in, more California style.
Yeah.
But I guess the South, all through the South, is like that. No one has fence lines because a lot of people have big ass property. That's like, I'm like, oh, that's some crazy shit. So I don't know. And I think that, again, risk versus reward. It's like, do I want to start a new job? I'm at an age where it's like, do I really want to start a new job? Because like the company that I work for, they have places I could go. They do have Nashville, which I think is kind of cool. They have Orlando. They do have a spot in North Carolina, but it's further north. It's in Raleigh. But like places like that where like I'm looking to where I could stay within this company. So the risk isn't as huge. It's like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I can step in. I could go that route and see. But, I'm definitely I'm thinking of it, but man, the risk is big, and I'm definitely a tad scared to start over, for sure.
I get that. I mean, because I am too with this whole divorce thing. Everything that I'm doing is risky right now, and I get it. I get not wanting to make huge risks or take huge risks because you don't know what's on the other end of that. Especially like because you're right. We're getting to an age where, jobs are going to be different and life is going to start changing, and maybe our health will start changing. We don't.
Whoa. Hey.
Right? Like, think about it. Like, where do you want to be? And who's going to have your back if something starts to happen? And, my dad's getting older, and do I want to leave and not be around if something were to happen to him? Because I'm the one that takes over if there's an emergency, or my brother, when he was sick, it was all on my shoulders. So, that as we're getting older is even scary too. But again, if you don't risk, if you don't take a chance, if you don't plan to live your life and live it, then shit, I could have just stayed where I was and just be semi-happy, and that wouldn't have been good for him, and it wasn't good for me, and I don't know. It's still scary.
It kind of reminds me of I have an old friend of mine, Scott, that had passed away. I worked with him when I was an installer, and he never took the risk to move. He had a girlfriend that lived in another state, and they flew back and forth and saw each other. But he had an elderly dad who, unfortunately, his dad has outlived him. But I saw that as kind of another way to look at risk versus reward. Like, he never took the risk, so he never got the reward. And it sucks because I think if he, if the hindsight is always 2020, if he could have saw like, hey, if I would have just did this, maybe he wouldn't have passed away, because he would have had someone that would have been on him and told him to do this and tell him to do that. And that's the big thing. I think in your case, at least the way I look at it, because I've kind of been through where you're at, I think your reward is big. Like, you yes, the risk is obviously heavy because everything that you know is here. Like that is the thing. But you have a big reward on the other side. Like you could go somewhere where nobody knows you. There's no there's no one thinks a certain way about you. No one does this. Yeah, the hard part is meeting people and getting back into that different kind of life. But man, like there's no one to judge you. They you're giving them a brand new slate to kind of understand who you are. And I like that. Like to me, I'm excited about that. Obviously, like even if I did move to like North Carolina where my friend does live, like it would be cool because at least I would have somebody that I could probably lean on and at least have that communication where I wouldn't be like super close, but I would be close enough to still be able to see people. I have a buddy who lives in South Carolina. I could always go and visit him. That's less than a day trip away. So though I'm thinking about like that kind of thing. The same with Tennessee's a bit further. Tennessee's like, that's like, I mean, still a day trip. You could probably make it from parts of Tennessee to that side of the world in, about a day, 20 hours or so. But
yeah, that's just too freaking long, though. Seriously, in a day, you have to travel the whole freaking day. It takes a couple of days. Even going to El Paso when I drive, it's a 13-hour trip, and I'm like, nah, it's going to take me 2 days to get there. I'll start off on one day, have to sleep somewhere, and then get the
see,
get
13 hours. 13 hours. I'd make that shit in a day. I would make sure
you would think, and I used to all the time, but it gets really tiring. Yeah, and if you're doing it by yourself, forget about it.
That's a whole other thing. If I was alone, I would probably stop somewhere. But if I had someone to go with me, it would be on. Excuse me. I think that would be easier for me just because I could see myself, going that route.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know.
But the risk thing, I think people don't take enough risks, to be honest. I mean,
for sure.
I look at people, especially because of the marriage thing. It's like it seems like it's in the forefront of my brain these days. And I look at all the people that have been together and have been married for so long, and they're not really happy with each other, and they're living kind of separately together, which is kind of how I did it with my ex. And thinking to myself, man, why do you want to live like that? Why wouldn't you want to go for broke? You know what I mean? Find somebody that makes you happy. Find somebody that wants to be around you, that you want to be around. Find somebody that is more of a match for this point in time in your life as opposed to when you were in your 20s. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So where most people stick it out, and make it happen and try to be happy where they are. I just felt like life was too short for us to not be happier,
For sure. I think that's huge. Look, that happiness is a hard thing as it is. So not taking the risk, you're just making yourself unhappy.
Right.
And it's easy to get stuck in a rut. It really is. It's not hard to be like, oh, it's not that bad, or it's just this, and things are going all right. And yeah, I kind of like my job. It's like, no, you only live once. We've talked about this a bazillion times on this show that you have to do it and you have to take a chance.
Mm-hmm. You really do. Because if you don't, then you're going to be sitting on your deathbed one day going, I wish I had.
Oh,
and I didn't. And man, I really do fear that. I don't want to be stuck in that situation.
For sure. You don't want your conscience going, you made a mistake. You didn't do it.
right?
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we all want to be happy. Unfortunately, you have to take risks to do said thing. I just think that now I'm at a spot where I'm like, okay, the risk is lower than the reward, at least in my head. It's not a huge risk. It's like, yeah, is it going to take me something to move across the country or to move to another state? Sure, but it's just one more thing to do. And now that I know I have a year, right? I know that what I'm going to do. I'm going to start changing the way that I live, my lifestyle. I'm going to put as much money away as I can. I'm going to cut corners here and there. It's just going to be a different way of life, so I can put away money to move. So and now it'll just be about that. Like, how do I change? Now that could also change. You never know. I could meet somebody, and I could do this and I could do that, and my whole life could change. But
absolutely could.
Yeah. So and so that's another, it's risk versus reward. If you end up meeting somebody, knowing that you don't see yourself where you're at, like this state or whatever, do you take the risk of starting a relationship with somebody and knowing that you don't want to be here? That to me, it's like, I'm to the point now too, where it's like, it's about fairness. Like, I think if I end up meeting somebody, my thing would be like, I'm not sure if I want to stay here.
Yeah.
So like, how serious do you want to get? Or do you want to have a relationship for a year knowing that I'm going to bail out at some point? Then it's on them for risk versus reward. What?
Damn, you put it on them. That kind of sucks.
No, I mean, but like, look, because you don't know. I mean,
you're right.
Like, I'm pretty sure that I want to move, or in my head that I want to move.
Yeah, I saw your social media and I was like, wait, whoa, what?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I just like to throw it out there to kind of see what people are saying. And it's all the states that I thought, but most of these people are like Arizona, Texas, Tennessee, Florida. Those are the states to move to. Because
that's where all the Californians are going.
Well, and it's most of the places that have the most freedom. A lot of these states like Florida and Texas, they didn't have a lockdown. These fucking crazy people in LA, they were thinking about doing a mask thing again.
Yes.
And then people lost their shit. And then LA came out and was like, yeah, we're going to change our mind about that. We're not going to do
that. Thankfully, at the last hour.
Well, yeah, because people are going to get torches and pitchforks now. Like, people aren't playing that shit no more. They're like, look, being locked up screwed up a lot of people.
It did.
And that's why things are the way they are. And people are taking that risk of moving their whole family across the country for a new start. Because I think the thing too with moving, obviously, like, you're not a political person, but a lot of these people, like anything, it's self segregation, right? You always want to be around people that are like-minded or similar. You're never going to get, like, in this state, it's that we're all bonkers. Like, everyone has their own opinions, and there's 400 of them. They're like genders. Like, you just never know what you're going to get next. At least in some states, or in some cities, in some states, they're like totally different. It's kind of like there's liberal towns in Texas, Austin, Houston, very liberal minded. But outside of that, it's not. And Florida, obviously, with the really not changing for mask mandates or any of that crazy shit. So again, risk versus reward. Like, what is that? A guy came into my work today with a mask on, which is great. That's the best part about this whole thing. It's up to you. Like, to me, that's the way I look at it. the guy that I work with next to me was like, I'm so glad that I don't have to wear a mask anymore. He goes, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it again. And let me tell you, this guy was like the crazy mask guy. Like he was like shouting from the rooftops, you know, that he had to have it like, you must wear a mask. Like crazy. Like it was just like that. Like he was just bonkers. So for me, it just goes to show you that like the risk versus reward, he's like, fuck that. I ain't doing that shit no more. Like, I don't want to do it. And he has small grandchildren. And even now he's like, they got it. They've got the last, whatever strain we're on now. The I don't give a fuck strain, whatever, which one that is. So it was like, he's like, you know, bonkers. So, you know, it's the risk is crazy, Teen. I think in your case, your risk versus reward right now is a new thing. You have a very wide open thing for you, because you're in a crazy spot. I mean, you're kind of in the same spot I was 13 years ago, where it's just like, what choice do I make right now that is going to thoroughly change my life, or I'm just gonna keep riding it out and see what happens here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what I do, because I don't have a plan and I can't even see it. You know what I mean? I'm at a point right now where there's not a opportunity presenting itself in any direction.
Right. I think you have to get past that first hurdle. In your case, I think you're going to have to look for the star in the sky to go to, per se. So the opportunity is going to have to kind of smack you in the head.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have to go, okay, I'm going to look for this opportunity, and then we're going to see what happens. It's kind of like me. Like I started like just, you know, looking at jobs for shits and giggles on the other side of the world, just to see. Because that's, you know, you have to start thinking that way. Mostly if you're going to move across the country, like I have to have a job when I get there. I have to do this when I get there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a definitely crazy thing for me. I see that the risk is huge. So I don't know. Oh, I just got you know, it's funny why we're doing this. You know, we get news, so I'm going to give a little news so people know what day this is. So here you go, Tina. Just so you know, the announcer for the Dodgers, Vin Scully, died today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I didn't. It just came across my my text message. So he was 94 years old.
Crazy.
So what do you think? He took probably a lot of risks.
You think so? He stayed at the same job for 100 years.
Yeah, but you got to remember, he was in Brooklyn, moved across the country.
Yeah. Well,
be in LA and I think he probably took some risks staying with the Dodgers when they were maybe not as not as fortunate. He's a smart guy for sure. Like the reward was big for him. He'd stayed with the same company for years, retired, got his World Series rings, lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's your turn. I think it's time for you to run out there and take a risk and get a reward.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
let's see what happens.
I think you got a lot going for you. So
well, we'll see. We'll see what happens next. I mean, for me, everything right now is a risk, and whatever rewards are out there it's gonna be what it is. And I'm excited, but I'm also pretty nervous. And yeah, I just wish I had a direction. But I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
I got time.
Life always goes on, darling. You'll be fine.
That it does.
And speaking of going on, make sure you check us out on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, anywhere that you hear these lovely podcasts, iHeartRadio, and you can check our social medias. We're on that Facebook thing, sometimes Twitter, Instagram. Make sure to check out the show notes. We have an email. We want you to email us. We're looking for guests. Lots of good fun stuff. Make sure you check us out and make sure you subscribe or whatever they call it on whatever platform you're on, and share the show. Sharing is caring, and we want people to care.
That's right.
See, Tina, it's time for bed because you look like you're ready to pass out. That's why I did the.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm chilling. This cat, I got a kitten, and the cat's sitting next to me, and she just like puts me in a zone. I don't know. I kind of like it.
I find the same thing with me. Like here's the risk versus reward. Here's the biggest thing before we go today. The risk and reward of getting an animal. The risk is you end up with a shitty animal who's just crazy and doesn't listen to you.
Right.
But the reward is that you may end up with a great animal that's going to live, a good 10 to 14 years of your life. I'm glad I did it. I as much as he raises my blood pressure, he also lowers it. So, I'm back to walking with him about 5 miles a day.
Great.
Yeah. So risk versus the reward is he's making me get off my fat booty and get around.
Yeah.
All right, teeners. Well, anything you want to say before the end of this lovely podcast, as always?
Take a risk.
Yes.
Take a
seriously,
risk.
I agree.
No, I'm with, that's totally where I'm at right now.
Take a risk.
I just got to figure out which one and where. We'll see how it goes.
And, we'll just have to record our podcast from different time zones.
Yeah, that there could be harder things.
Yes, that's very true. Very true. There could be a great reward coming in that. So,
yeah.
All righty. Well, as you know, this is an opinion show, so don't get it twisted. Enjoy. Take your risks. We'll see you in a week because we're here every Wednesday, and we'll see you then. Later, Tina.
See ya.
Don't get this twisted.